And now let's return live to Canberra, where the departing Education Minister, member for Kingsford Smith, Peter Garrett, is giving his valedictory address.
The disassociation, disintegration in some cases, and then rejuvenation and renewal of their culture and their aspirations in a way which has been a great test for the people who were the first peoples of this country. And it's entirely appropriate that the Parliament now recognises that, as we do, when we begin the session of Parliament at the beginning of a parliamentary term. And it's also entirely appropriate that we are developing an increasingly bipartisan approach to addressing the disadvantage that still is borne very heavily by the first peoples of this nation. And I certainly commend the efforts of all in the Parliament, and I can see the member for Banks here, and I certainly want to acknowledge his distinguished record in this regard. I'll also quickly thank, if I can, family. Regrettably, my family's not here at the moment, but I do want to put on the record, as many other members have who've reached this point, how extraordinary a contribution they make to all of us here. None more so in my case, seeing as I've been in public life for in excess of 30 years, probably more like 35. And in that period of time, of course, a great deal of time has been spent away from home. So to my wife Doris and my children Emily, May and Grace, big thanks. To staff as well, and again, it is commonplace for us to recognise that our staff are really us. They're certainly our arms and legs. In my case, thankfully, sometimes they're our brains as well. But you are only able to operate effectively in this place and faithfully, as it were, if you have good staff. And I know the member for Perth was reflecting on the longevity of his staff. I have some staff who've experienced longevity in my terms as well, and I do want to thank them personally at this point in time. In particular, Kate Pasterfield, my Deputy Chief of Staff, Denise Spinks, my Chief of Staff, and in my electorate office, Sandy Chick and Jenny Hunter. But there are many others here and some in the chamber who I just want to say that you cannot do this job at all, and you certainly can't do this job well unless you've got staff that commit themselves to you and go the extra K and even more, and certainly mine have done that, and I very much appreciate their commitment and their loyalty. I made a statement to explain the reason why I was standing down from the ministry and not recontesting my seat yesterday by saying that I came into this place previously as a front man to become a team player. And the one thing I do want to reflect on is that if people are concerned about the way in which the public views the political processes, and if those of us that are participants in the process are concerned about our capacity to communicate that what we're really on about here are serious issues of public policy, then they are the things that we need to talk about and concentrate on. And I know it's been a subject of considerable bemusement, including to those in the press gallery, that I won't jump up on my ministerial desk and do an air guitar. That I won't come into the House and quote my own song lyrics. That I won't take the opportunities that are afforded to people who have celebrity status to use that to advance either the causes of the government or the political party that I've come here as a member of. But there's been a very important reason for that, and it's twofold. One is I've got too much respect for what I did before to belittle it in any way. And secondly, I've got too much respect for what we're doing here and what we're trying to do to try and use that. If it can't stand on its own public policy foundations, then any of us engaging in stunts isn't really going to help in the long term. Yeah. However, having said that, I've endeavoured to do my best, both in terms of loyalty, in terms of the disciplines that I think are very necessary in parliamentary politics, particularly with the intensity of the cycle, the media cycle that we face. And I see I'm joined by some of my colleagues here. I won't mention any vocal performances at this point in time. But I think what I'm really trying to say through you, Speaker, is that you don't come here out of self-interest, you come here for the public interest. And in doing that, you try and make your way through wherever you're sitting in the Parliament, and then you hope that you can make a contribution. Now, I don't want to produce a litany or list of any kind about contributions other than to highlight a couple of things which I think are useful to get on the record and to reflect in some ways on what I discovered when I came into the Parliament and when we were in opposition. The first thing I discovered was that Kim Beazley had a very loud voice, because we were sitting on the back bench at the time. And I actually greatly enjoyed that experience. I think all of us here recognise that there's, the history of the modern settler nation is very much reflected through this building, and all of the engagements that have gone on and the characters who've writ large on our stage. And so I was sitting in front of both Kim Beazley and Carmen Lawrence, and their scrutiny, their analysis, their commentary about Prime Minister Howard at the time, and their interjection. It was a great learning experience for me. And the other fact is that it doesn't matter where you come from or what you've done. When you come in here, you start from the ground up, and you learn from square one as well. And people just, you just can't sweep in here, even if you've had some other career that's had a few blooms about it, and expect that the same thing will apply. So I really wanted to learn the craft and apply myself to it. And of course, I brought a strong interest in the environment. And one of the things that I'm pleased about is that we did have a very good policy when we came into the 2007 election, which in part was a recognition that the way in which we've been thinking about energy and about pollution and about the environment needed to change. And I'm extremely proud that we were able to argue strongly at that time for the renewable energy target and to see how well it's working now. There are many other things that one could talk about, but of real importance there, and I see Prime Minister Rudd's here, Prime Minister Gillard, former Prime Minister Gillard is here as well. What we've done on climate change will be recognised as a substantial transforming reform, and we're doing it in a way that is thorough, we're doing it in a way that is intellectually honest, we're doing it in a way that is going to reap the planet some dividends, albeit too small and over a long period of time than I think is necessary. But we are actually in a position to do that now. And there's a reason why business has confidence in the price on carbon. It's because it's an economically rational way of dealing with this issue. And I think there's a reason why the public, I hope now, are showing increasing confidence in the price that we have on carbon, because it's working. What more could you ask for? I was fortunate enough to serve in two ministries, education, heritage and the arts, and then latterly in education, early childhood and youth. Let me just say, and I want to acknowledge the member for Watson here, the commitment that we made in government that I felt was important for us to make, to have a system of world-class marine reserves around this nation, was a very, very important thing for us to do, and to have it realised now, albeit with some risk in the other place, I think is one of the great conservation achievements of this party, and in the true Labor tradition. Because after all, I'm happy and would always try and be generous in recognition of environmental contributions across the Parliament. And I think it's fair for me to say that despite much of the language that we get from the Greens party in the upper house, in this forum, they haven't delivered a great deal of conservation reform. You may say, and I acknowledge former Senator Brown and his activities in Tasmania, no, considerable. But here, in this place, if you want to look after the environment in a real way, it is our environment as a nation, it's every Australian's environment, and you can only do it in the National Parliament. And the party that has done the most of it is the Labor Party. It's the Australian Labor Party. And seeing as I've got the member for Rankin and others here, I do recall arriving with a cassette player at Kirribilli House, and Prime Minister Hawke greeted me wearing a pair of stubbies and a shirt, and I was able to play him a track from the Midnight Oil 10-to-1 album called There Must Be One Place Left in the World, a song about Antarctica. And of course, as we know, the rest is history. But in any event, that was an important commitment, and I think as well to start thinking really seriously about the powers that an Environment Minister has and should responsibly exercise. And I'm very pleased in all of the decisions that I made, including some controversial decisions, particularly in Queensland with the Traviston Dam, that there's only one of those decisions, and then on a technicality, that was ever overturned in any court or tribunal. Importantly, though, we were able to elevate some of our beautiful natural places and give them the recognition and protection they deserved. I'm thinking of things like Ningaloo Reef on the World Heritage List, and what a tremendous boon to Australia and to Western Australia that will be. The listing of the Kimberley region on the National Heritage List, and of course some big and important reforms to do with the Great Barrier Reef. That's really about making sure that you work in partnership with farmers on the land side of the reef so that whatever's going into the water is a lot cleaner than it's been previously. Crucially though, and this is very important for me to put this on the record, many of those reforms are literally under threat now with the attitude that has been taken by Premier Newman and the Queensland Government. There is a taint of recklessness and disregard for our environment that washes through that Queensland Government administration that frankly gives me great cause for concern. And I can assure anybody listening, and those of my colleagues who are here, that once I leave this place, I'll be doing my utmost to make sure that those natural heritage, natural environment gains that have been hard won by the community and then by the Parliament are kept in place. I should go quickly now to education, and I should thank the Prime Minister, former Prime Minister Gillard, for giving me the opportunity to serve in that capacity, because in some ways I was on a, let's just face it, it was a no-win situation being Environment Minister. You know, I had 50% of the Australian population wanted me to do much more, and the other 50% didn't want me to do anything at all. And so there we were in the middle, and you know, that's politics, and quite often politics is finding that middle path and arguing, and arguing it out as you go. And I'm proud of the legacy, and I'm proud of what I've seen continue. But and one final thing to say. A couple of other decisions that were particularly important. One was to seriously contest the question of whaling in the Southern Ocean, so-called scientific whaling. Now, it is a furphy to think that by dispatching boats down there for some colour and movement TV and fundraising for a non-government organisation, you will stop the Japanese government supporting this activity. That is a complete furphy. And anyone who believes it needs to just, you know, bit of real politic, read a bit of history. The fact is that constructive engagement and very thoughtful policy development around what we really need to do and get out of our natural environment. Whales surely are worth more to us alive than they are dead. Surely they are. And of course, the research that we've been doing with our colleagues in New Zealand, particularly important research about cetaceans, is showing that time and time again. They help us understand, by the way, the kind of impacts that we're seeing from a warming ocean, just as they provide sustainable income for those communities that have whale watching activities. But in any event, I digress. The next step to take, if one must, is to use the full force of the law and to exercise the national interest in the international forum. And the fact is that the case that's currently before the International Court of Justice, it'll be the first time since I think 1972 that we've actually been in a tribunal to argue that case. And just to remind those present, that was when we went to the court to protest against the French testing nuclear weapons at Mururoa Atoll. There we are.